I observed quite a bit at F1 testing in Bahrain last weekend, so I'm going to share 24 different observations with you, starting off with number 1, drivers' heights. What were the biggest differences? I originally thought Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon, but no, it was another pair. The biggest height difference between teammates is between Pierre Gasly and his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. Pierre stands at 177 centimetres tall, Yuki Tsunoda 159 centimetres. That's a whopping 18 centimetre difference. What is that? Probably that much? I originally thought it was Fernando and Esteban. Esteban's at 186 centimetres, Fernando's at 171. So that's a 15 centimetre difference. So Pierre and Yuki take that crown. We had a Gulf Air aeroplane fly over at probably 1,500 feet, and not once it did 6 or 7 passes at that height, giving us plenty of photo opportunities in preparation for the start of the Bahrain GP on March 28th. I was interested to see that there were new lighting panels on every level of the tower near Turn 1. They weren't on the building when I last shot in 2019, and I'm not sure they were there last year, but they were giving the signage a bit of a run on the Thursday prior to the 3-day test. Speaking of testing, there are at least 6 different testing tents set up around the paddock area at the Bahrain International Circuit, and we're required to go to them every 3 or 5 days to make sure that we test negative for the virus. Is Netflix back? You bet. In fact, here's Nonok, one of the cameramen for the series, and I think you'll probably realise that this goes to air on March 19. I'm premiering this video on March 18, so if you're watching it afterwards, you're in luck because you can go straight onto Netflix now and watch Drive to Survive. On day 1 of testing, the Friday morning, I caught Mick Schumacher in a hell of a hurry running from the car park into the paddock. If you're travelling overseas, make sure you take the right credit card with you. I used to take one that used to rack up a 3% charge on every international currency spend. It used to drive me crazy. Now I found a card that doesn't charge me that 3%. The exchange rate is slightly worse, but it's certainly not 3% worse. In Australia it's a Bank West card, and I'm sure in your country there'd be a card that offers a similar sort of deal. It's well worth looking into. It'll save you a fortune if you're away for a long time. I could have observed the only overtake of Lewis Hamilton by Nikita Mazepin this season. It happened on day 2 of testing as they were coming down the hill, with Nikita having to swerve out off the track to overtake Lewis. How about this? Antonio Giovinazzi and Peter Sebrian, who's the digital and social media manager for Alfa Romeo, looking like they were returning from a shopping trip. Obviously they weren't, but that's the vibe I got from the pic. I can't remember seeing another driver roll up solo in a car, but that's exactly what Lando did on the Sunday, rolling up on his own driving a Nissan Patrol. Where was his manager and trainer? Apparently they were in a different car and arrived a short time later. I've never seen that before. The helicopter being used for the overhead shots and vision from the track is actually from the Bahrain Air Force. In fact, I tried to hire a helicopter here to do some overhead shots. Just can't do it. The only choppers on the island are from the Air Force. I've always been intrigued by this big white golf ball looking structure that sits up high on a hill, probably 2 or 3 k's away from the track, and it's visible in a number of our shots. So it turns out it's a satellite communications facility for the military, but it appears predominantly in a number of different shots that we like to take, particularly this one looking up the hill. Inspector Valtteri here is getting down on his haunches to check out the rear end of the Red Bull. He may well have been inspecting the suspension, but a couple of you on social media were saying he may well have to get used to looking at the rear end of that car quite a lot this season. We'll see, hey? Here's an observation about the Alfa Romeo race suits. They are the only race suits that have some sort of ribbing, and if you look closely at this photograph you can see that there are ribbed lines running top to bottom. No other race suits have that, and I can't tell you if they serve a purpose. Canady.com is the world's best online staff training platform, and I'm delighted to say that they sponsor these videos. Bahrain has some very interesting ambulances. Have a look at this one in the background of this shot. They look rather vintage to me, certainly big, and I was cranky actually that they were in the background of our shots with the drivers walking through a main gate from the car park back to the paddock. But in actual fact, I think they look quite quirky and colourful. What about you? The Sky TV crew wore black armbands on the Sunday of testing in memory of one of the great commentators of the F1 era, Murray Walker. I spoke to Ted Kravitz about it, and he seemed to think that Murray wouldn't have wanted the fuss. But he got fuss, and he got fuss aplenty, and was all over social media, being remembered for all the right reasons as a great of F1. I took a little bit of time and I actually went down to the impact area of Romain Grosjean's crash last year and noted that it had been completely repaired, obviously, and now there are 2 stacks of tyres plus some rubber matting along the front. So if a car ever comes ploughing into that area of the track again, there's no chance it can go through the rail. Drivers love backpacks, and I see a whole host of backpacks out there. The flashiest one? Pierre Gasly's Louis Vuitton Trio Backpack Monogram Brown in canvas with gold tone. What's it worth? Well over a couple of $1,000 US. And I've shot Daniel Ricciardo a couple of times hauling around a Gucci LA Angels backpack, which is expensive but probably not quite at the level of Pierre's. I observed my first ever driver's briefing. Admittedly, it was from the other side of the track and was being held on an outside balcony, which all of the driver's briefings, I believe, will be held this year outside somewhere because of social distancing. But got some great pictures. Unfortunately, I wish they'd all been turned around the other way so we had the drivers facing it. But anyway, we live in hope. Because of COVID, the bins here at the track all have push pedals to open them. Now, in Australia, we've never seen that, and maybe in Europe you're seeing it, but to me, it was new. Hence, it's an observance in this series. Face masks, we all have to wear them. I was surprised though that not too many drivers have their own logos on their face masks. I caught a couple, the Williams boys, Valtteri Bottas, amongst a handful, but certainly the minority, not the majority, have their logos on their face mask. Speaking of logos, I'm pretty sure that Esteban Ocon has the longest logo. I caught this shot of his logo on his shoes. I was delighted to see this fella back at F1. He had a year off last year, but he's not actually staying the whole season. This is Nigel Hope from Red Bull. He's been a garage manager in the past now. He's working back at Milton Keynes, but he popped out to get the place set up ahead of the 3-day test. He's a character, and very well tattooed too. AlphaTauri driver Yuki Tsunoda has some interesting cuffs on his pants. I didn't realise this until I was going through some photos, and he must have 6 or 7 centimetres of his pants rolled up as a cuff. It is uncomfortable shooting low level in the sand, and I can tell you that because I spent a good deal of Saturday and Sunday down in that sand shooting through the gaps of the Armco. I did get some great shots, and it's more of an observation than a complaint, I promise you. And finally, Lando Norris's trainer John Malvin was seen here coming in with a HYPERVOLTTED unit on one of the days of testing. According to this, it brings high performance home with HYPERICE recovery tools. It relieves muscles after a tough workout and boosts blood flow after long periods of inactivity. I wonder if it works, what it does for an elite athlete. Obviously enough for John to be trying it with Lando. In actual fact, you got 2 extras in that lot. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. And if you are in a country that allows joining as a member, I recommend you do it because I've just added, I think, 6 or 7 new wallpapers for you to download free of charge. You can get all of my images at prostarpics.com for editorial or personal purposes. My F1 driver books, you'll find them at kimillman.com, and we ship to almost anywhere in the world. And for my best pics live from the track and throughout the week, head to Instagram at kimillman. Thanks for watching. Stay passionate. But they were testing, get out. There is one bastard fly.